Hi, so I'm going to do a review of, I think it's Mikkeller, I Beat You, an American style Imperial IPA. I don't know why that was so hard to say. Um, so I did a couple seconds worth of research before I started this video. I was trying to find out the IBUs, and I can't find anything that says it. Um, it's 9.75% alcohol by volume, and it is designed to have as much hops in there as possible. And I figured that it's going to be hoppy by virtue of the fact that this guy with no face um, has a hop. And so maybe he smelled all of the hops and his face melted off. I don't know. Stay tuned. We'll find out. And so as an Imperial IPA, there's a lot of interesting history about this particular style of beer, but I read, and it made me a little nervous. The IBU range in the BJCP category is 60 to 120. And so I feel like beers that are above 60 are pretty intense, so anything that ranges from 60 to 120 makes me nervous, but we'll see how this works out. Wow, it's definitely hoppy. And the alcohol by volume range is 7.5 to 10%, and this one came in, like I had said, at 9.75, so this is going to be a pretty intense beer. And I found this, I'm pretty sure, in the single beer section at Whole Foods as well, because I think I've seen it on the shelves, but I wasn't inclined to buy a whole pack of it. So let's see how this is. So this was actually brewed by Mikkeller at BrewDog in Scotland. So a Scottish beer brewed in the American Imperial Pale Ale style. So this should be interesting. So basically, this is BJCP category 14C, which is Imperial IPA. And the category basically says, put liquid hops in the bottle. So we'll see how this works out. So as soon as I opened it, I definitely smelled hops. But it's hoppy in like a fruity kind of way. It's very interesting, actually. So it's fruity, kind of malty, a little sweet, and hoppy, but hoppy in like a piney, fruity way. And I don't want to say it's different, I think, than I've smelled in a lot of American style IPAs, where it's like definitely grapefruity or like very pungent gym socks or grapefruit smell. This is a little bit different, so I'm interested to see how this works out. As far as the look goes, it's a beautiful amber color and hazy, so it's, let me just make sure that's not condensation on the glass, but no, it's definitely a little hazy. It's very lightly carbonated. I can barely see any bubbles that are in there. I think it poured, I don't even know that it poured with the head, actually, and I wasn't paying attention when I poured it, but there's definitely not a head on it now. Both of those so far are appropriate for appearance. The color range would be from a gold amber to a medium reddish copper. Some can have an orangish tint. It says it should be clear, but an unfiltered dry hopped versions may be a bit hazy. And so we see that here. It suggests that a good head with an off-white color should persist, which we did not see. So I think that's pretty interesting. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell if it's the way that I pour it, or if it's just the way that the beer is, because I tend to pour to try to eliminate head. And I think particularly so in a tiny little glass like this. But nonetheless, let's get into flavor. Very interesting. Wow. Okay. There is a lot going on in this beer. First of all, I'm really impressed with how sweet it is. It's very sweet. So that's the initial flavor that I'm getting, and it's malty and caramelly, and deep sweetness. Like, almost like it has sugar in it sweet. And I don't know if it has sugar in it because it's written in another language. Very interesting how sweet this beer is, and I was certainly not expecting that out of it. It balances that intense sweetness with some really intense hops. And so the finish is very, very pungent, very citrusy. And so that's where that grapefruit kind of flavor comes in. So we're expecting a strong hop and complex flavor. And an Imperial IPA can have American, English, and or noble hop varieties. High to absurdly high hop bitterness, although a malt backbone will generally support high hop character, strong hop character. And I think that that's definitely true in this particular situation. So initially I get all that sweetness and I think, holy moly, like this beer is going to be impossible to drink. It's so sweet. But it really finishes in a way that supports that intense sweetness. It's so by the end, you know, that flavor roller coaster I'm always talking about, it starts off really sweet, it gets really, really bitter, but the aftertaste, those two come together and it's actually pretty darn enjoyable. Very interesting. So malt flavor should be low to medium and is generally clean and malty, though some caramel or toasty flavors are acceptable at low levels. I think for this particular style, it's probably a little too sweet, malty, and caramelly. So that might discount it in this category. It says low fruitiness is acceptable but not required. Long lingering bitterness is usually present in the aftertaste, but it should not be harsh. And in that respect, I think they've done very good. It should be a medium to dry finish with a clean, smooth alcohol flavor. Now, what I think is really interesting is that this beer is at 9.75%, and that's a hard-hitting beer. But I don't taste the alcohol. I don't feel the alcohol burn. Although, as I'm saying that, I suppose that in my tummy, I can tell that I just had a high alcohol content beverage. But you don't get that burn or that sensation or that feeling or that taste in the beer when you're drinking it. So I think that's very interesting quality. Perhaps even a dangerous quality. Mouthfeel. This is so slick and smooth. It's very interesting. I always find that IPAs tend to be very drying and astringent, and this is kind of I don't even know, like in the beginning it's very juicy and fruity and sweet, and thick and full, but then at the end, with that super hot bitterness, it really kind of compensates for that in a strange way that makes that it ends up being slightly astringent and drying. Very interesting dichotomy there. Like it's very interesting, and I keep wanting to have more sips and trying it again. I'm curious because I just pulled this out of the refrigerator, so it's pretty cold. I'm curious how that hoppiness is going to open up and kind of override all the sweetness that I'm getting initially as the beer gets a little bit warmer. So all of that is definitely on target for this particular category. There should be a smooth alcohol warming. I'm not really getting that out of it at 9.75%, but I don't think that is a flaw. I feel like if you can make a strong beer that is drinkable and the strength is unnoticeable, that you've done a good job with flavor. So people who are looking for a really intense high hop beer are really, really going to enjoy this and find it incredibly drinkable. And I think that they made session ales specifically to follow up beers that are 9.75% alcohol, because if you drank 3 of these, you'd be hurting. So overall impression, I think it is totally an intensely hoppy beer. I'm really curious to know what its IBU rating is, and maybe I need to do some more research to find that out. I think that over 10% alcohol breaks into the barley wine category, so we're really riding that edge. But they have done a really good job of balancing. Sometimes I feel like I have IPAs, especially like an Imperial IPA or an IPA who's really trying to push the hop edge as much as possible. And it's so hoppy. Like all they've done is focus on the hops that it makes it undrinkable. This really with all of the sweetness that's in it, balances it in a really nice way. So it's definitely intense, but it's drinkable because that hot bitterness doesn't linger, and it's really it really backs up the sweetness nicely. I think if it were either just sweet or just bitter hops, it would be undrinkable. But together, actually, it comes out and it's pretty nice. So historically, as far as this particular category is concerned, it's a recent American innovation of reflecting the trend in American craft beers, pushing the envelopes to satisfy the need of hop aficionados for increasingly intense products. The adjective imperial is arbitrarily or simply implies stronger version of an IPA. A double, an extra, or an extreme, or other variety of adjectives would be equally valid. So when you read Imperial on an IPA, what that really means is it's going to kick you in the face with hops, or melt your face off, as they do in this particular picture with the guy with no face. So Imperial means face melting hops, and I think that they've done a good job in that respect. So it's bigger than either an English or an American IPA. Both in alcohol strength and overall hop bitter level, and in bittering and in finishing hops. It's less malty, lower body, less rich, generally overall hop intensity than an American barley wine, typically not as high in alcohol as barley wine, since alcohol and malt tend to limit drinkability. It's a showcase for hops. It's really just a vector for hops. And so in this respect, like for the hop lovers of the world, like you need to drink this beer. It's amazing in that respect. And I really find it very interesting that I feel like the lager is really on the opposite end of the spectrum from an Imperial IPA as far as hop intensity and bitterness. Lagers are, to me, very sweet. Corn, most of them have a corn adjunct in them, so they tend to be they tend to be very sweet. While hops are on the opposite end, IPAs are on the opposite end with the bitterness. This beer really kind of blends those two together. It reminds me of a couple of beers I've had recently that were called hoppy lagers, where you get that kind of sweetness, but you get the hoppiness as well. But this is done to, such a stronger degree, both in sweetness and in hoppiness. So very interesting trend for the hop drinkers of the world, hop lovers of the world. Cheers to you. You'll like this beer. Definitely drink it. Anyway, so I'm curious to find out more about this BrewDog, and then Mikkeller, whoever it is that's doing this brewing. Good job, great beer. I think that you have nailed your market as far as who's going to be drinking hoppy, super hoppy beers. You've definitely done a good job. So thank you so much for this beer. Thank you so much for watching. If you've had a chance to give this a try, let me know. I would love to hear from you. I haven't seen this out there a lot. I think I've only maybe seen it at Whole Foods a couple of times, maybe at Bevmo, I'm not certain, but I definitely recommend if you see it and you're a hop lover, you love IPAs, that you give this a try. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching and have a good night.